Welcome back to Metropole Television. We are straight into our sector trends this morning. But we want to look at what is taking center stage now in an area in the transport sector in the country. Now, a lot of headlines around how taxi operators in the country are seeking leeway to get a proper operating environment amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this morning, we are going to be joined by Ola Akinosi, the Bolt Country Manager. Let's therefore introduce that story. Now, the Senate committee members this week sought to hear from the opinion of major players, that is Uber, Bolt, Maramoja, and Little, regarding the proposed commission rate cap at 15%, where every player gave their point of view on the matter. Now, Uber performance data. Now, the committee later on met National Transport and Safety Authority over the same matter, where invitees will be sent again after consultations to give their findings. But what was exactly discussed and how will it impact on the operations of the taxi hailing apps? We are joined by Ola Akinosi, Bolt Country Manager. Yes, as mentioned earlier on, to discuss the details of the meeting and look into the status of the taxi hailing apps in Kenya post the COVID-19 era. Ola, good morning, sir. Happy to have you around.
Thank you, Simba. Good morning. Thank you for having me around.
Fantastic. So let's get into that issue this morning. Can you bring us up to speed on what transpired during the Senate committee meeting as well as with the National Transport and Safety Authority?
Well, the engagements you're referring to and a couple others have been, per usual, a series of engagements that would usually come before, or would usually happen before a body of regulation, a series of regulations are put into place. It would ideally involve the operators or stakeholders within that industry. And I mean, beyond the fact that it's just usual engagement, I think the core of what everybody is trying to achieve is a scenario where all voices are heard, all opinions are given, and eventually we would all arrive at a body of regulation that has direct positive impact on the sector, on the industry, and then also, of course, on the economy of the country as a whole.
Fantastic, Ola. Now, let's talk about exactly, therefore, what the meeting was geared toward. I mean, when you look at the regulatory environment that therefore made the commission look at the rate, let's talk about that proposed cap, that 15% commission. Can you talk to us about the history, and can you talk to us about your position now as Bolt on that 15% commission?
Okay, well, so far, I'd say in terms of the history so far, it's been an interesting one. About 5 years ago, the industry in itself wasn't very vibrant or like fully operational in the Kenyan market. And then 5 years from then till now, to date, we've seen a scenario where the industry has gained some good ground. There's been quite some good level of impact as well across the livelihood and the economy of the country as a whole. So it feels kind of like a good time, and it's also a signifier that the industry has grown over the years for us to be speaking about regulations at this point, right? Now, speaking specifically about the commission cap of 15%, I think the fundamental part of the conversation around that is for operators on one end to give their differing opinions, of course, in terms of what they feel or how they feel the impact of the commission cap is going to be on their business. But I would say the central idea here is to try to get some good understanding from NTSA on how the 15% mark was brought about. I mean, it could be 30, it could be 5, it could be 2, right? So I think the first question is for all stakeholders to be fully aligned on the logic around whatever commission cap that is being set. But beyond that is the fact that there's also the fundamental principle around the legalities or the possibilities of a regulator to try to regulate the possible margins of a private company, right? So I think these are mostly questions that are being asked, at different levels and across different engagements to just be able to get good clarity on this different, not just the commission cap, but quite a number of other clauses in the regulation. And from a bold perspective, we have always been pro-regulation. We believe that regulations are there, or regulations should come up to protect the present and the future growth of any industry. So we would continue to engage on this kind of conversations, just to be able to, on one end, give our thoughts, and then on the other end as well, hope to arrive at body of regulations or bodies of regulation that would have positive impact on the industry and then on the Kenyan market as well as a whole.
Yes, Ola, I hear you speak, and I just want to go back to exactly how the law is currently when it comes to taxi hailing apps in the country. Now, we do understand that Nairobi County government does treat you as a single company operating within its precinct. Fine, that is well and done. So can you talk to me about what this commission would do? Is it pro-driver? Is it pro-industry? Is it pro the company? And what are going to be some of these effects? Should it go through then, Ola? Because that's where the conversation points are.
Okay, so what I can speak around at the moment is what is currently going on, right? So the regulation hasn't been passed. It's going to be difficult to already start to preempt what the scenarios would look like before it gets passed, right? But while the conversations are going on, I think part of what is important to mention is that whatever regulations that come out should eventually be able to achieve a couple things. Primary would be to be able to secure the interest of all stakeholders within that body of regulation or within the industry. So drivers, riders like yourself, like myself, who are like users of the platform, operators, the government, the regulators. I mean, like the stakeholder is quite a bevy of different segments of people. So ideally, the best case scenario is when we have a body of regulation that is proportionate on one end, and then on the other end is also geared towards protecting the interest of all the players, all the stakeholders within that industry. And lastly, which I would say is the most important part, is that the regulation is able to chart the cost to a secured future for that particular industry. And this is what we hope for. This is why we're very open to the conversations that are going on now. And I mean, eventually we see that positive outcomes would hopefully come out of this.
Pretty much. It's interesting now for this morning that you're talking about bringing in all the stakeholders. Last year we did say you guys go on strike, your drivers were on strike at some point, and wow, what we went through an indefinite strike period. Talk to me now, this year, when you are talking with all the stakeholders. Has the mood changed? Are they willing to sit down and talk?
For sure. I mean, quite a number of different levels of stakeholders have always actually been, even beyond whatever strike period. Because I would tell you for sure that whatever kind of strike that happens within any industry is actually, I would say, is done in good faith. And it's also a positive signal in the sense that people believe that they are going to be heard. People believe that they have the rights for the rights to speak against whatever kinds of scenarios that they see happening to them or to people they represent, which is very important, and it's significant to the growth of any industry. But beyond the strike, during, after, or any of these kinds of periods, what I have, or what we have experienced is that most stakeholders, or all stakeholders, are always willing to come to the table and have conversations. And I think that's the central point around being able to ensure that we end up at a scenario where the regulations work for everyone, and the regulations principally protect the interests of the country, of the economy of the country, and of all the stakeholders within that industry and beyond.
Pretty much. All right. Yes. I mean, the conversations yesterday were about this 15% cap commission. Fine. Now, from where you're sitting this morning, Ola, what are some of the concerns top concerns, I would say, in your industry that you're still going to talk to about the stakeholders, or something that you feel needs to be chatted now more than ever since the consultations are now going on?
Well, I would say it's about it's not a concern. It's mostly just a scenario that I hope we would continue to see, and that's a scenario where all interests are totally brought into consideration, and all interests, one way or the other, are listened to and protected one way or the other. The reason why I say this, because I mean, you'd say the ride-hailing industry and broadly the transport industry is quite significant to the growth, to the well-being of the economy of the country, right? So it's important that in moving towards ensuring that regulations, either within the digital space or outside of the digital space, it's important that all opinions, comments, and thoughts are put into consideration before moving forward to having whatever regulations that need to be had. And then for this, it's just to ensure that at the end of the day, these bodies of regulation would chart the way forward to secure the future for the industry and for the economy as a whole.
Interesting that therefore that these conversations are coming within a time when the economy or the world over is grappling with the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, which is pretty much going to paint a picture of post COVID-19. That's what everybody's talking about right now. So Ola, would you talk to me about what the effect of the pandemic has been on your services locally? Could you give me that proper picture on what the effect has been?
Okay. So for one, I would say that it's beyond the ride-hailing industry, actually. Almost every and any Kenya or visitors or friends that live in Kenya and the world over have felt a significant impact from the pandemic, right? So that's a given. Now, if you drill down to the ride-hailing industry, you would realize that from the government and other different health institutions or health authority guidelines on how to stamp out the pandemic or how to flatten the curve, a significant part of these measures have been stay-at-home, restriction of movement, restriction of movement of people and goods. And this actually forms the central part of the ride-hailing industry, right? So this, in a way, defines what the impact has looked like over the last couple of months. But what has happened within that period, which I can speak very much for both, is we have totally gone a lot more innovative than we have been in the past by having our entire actions and strategy as a business centered on two things. One thing is to ensure that we continue to remain driver-centric as we have always been, and then the second thing that has driven the entire body of strategies or whatever actions we've taken as a business is we have continued to remain cognizant of the changes in consumer behavior. Now, what this has led to, what this has created for us is a scenario where we've been able to make decisions, we've been able to act on strategies and implement solutions that have come super relevant during this particular period. For instance, we've launched a Bolt business delivery to solve the solution around delivery of goods across the country within this period. We've also launched Bolt Protect, which significantly helps in reducing the spread of the virus or the impact of people a driver and a rider having to be in the car at the same time, and a number of other solutions that we have launched. So for us, it's on one end ensuring that we remain driver-centric, and on the other side, we also remain cognizant of the different changes in consumer behavior in whatever business decisions that we continue to make. From now on into the future.
Pretty much. All right. Now, talk to me, therefore, about how there's this conversation about how some of the things that we were doing before are pretty much gone now and are going to go post the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you think that some of the things that you're doing pre-COVID-19, some of those services, are they gone for good? And some of these services that you've introduced now, are they going to remain with Bolt post-COVID-19, or it's just right now as we try and understand or get through this pandemic?
Well, so I mean, I agree with you. There's a lot of talk around the new normal and the new way of life and those kind of things. But I would say we've been quite lucky in the sense that before the pandemic struck, we have been an operationally smart company in the sense that we've always taken a step back to make very smart decisions, and we remain nimble in how we allocate the resources that we have as a company. This meant for us that we kind of were prepared for a time like this where changes happened in consumer behavior on one end, and then on the other end as well, there's been quite some changes that have come to the country as a whole. And for us, we haven't had any product or any service that we have discontinued. What we have had over the last couple of months is getting more innovative in doubling down on the products that we have in the market, part of which I mentioned earlier, the Bolt Protect initiative and the Bolt Business Delivery Solution. What we would continue to see beyond the pandemic is a sustained double, or like a sustained presence of these kinds of initiatives, of these existing ones, and then also further into new initiatives as well, like that would ensure that we continue to directly meet the needs of consumers within the Kenyan market where we serve.
Ola, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Always a pleasure to have you around, sir.
Awesome. Right. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Nice one too. We take a short break on business and once we come back, the economic review.